What if the first object we found in orbit wasn't one of our own satellites? What if it wasn't a piece of space junk or a fragment from a fallen rocket, but something else? Something ancient. Something that's been silently watching our world for thousands of years. A dark relic of an impossible technology. This is the story of the Black Knight satellite, and every piece of evidence in its legend, from the cryptic signals of a mad genius to a shocking photograph captured by NASA, is a clue in one of the most bizarre and tantalizing mysteries in history. Every great mystery has a beginning, a first clue, a whisper that piques our curiosity and refuses to be silenced. For the legend of the Black Knight, that first whisper came not from a modern satellite dish, but from a brilliant and often misunderstood mind. It was the late 1890s, and Nikola Tesla, a man who seemed to live in a future that hadn't yet arrived, was working in his Colorado Springs laboratory. He wasn't looking at the stars, he was listening to the cosmos with his instruments. He had built what he called a magnifying transmitter, a machine designed to send and receive powerful radio signals across vast distances. And one night, he heard something he wasn't expecting. He reported picking up a series of strange, rhythmic radio signals. They were uniform, consistent, and unlike anything he had ever heard before. He famously described them as a triumphant answer from another world, and believed they were a greeting from extraterrestrial beings, possibly from Mars. In an age where the idea of radio was still a novelty, the sheer audacity of this claim was absolutely revolutionary. Decades passed, and the mystery of those signals lay dormant. It wasn't until the 1970s that a Scottish astronomer named Duncan Lunan returned to the puzzle. He was obsessed with a little-known phenomenon called long-delayed echoes, radio signals that bounce back to Earth after an unusually long and unexplained pause. Lunan believed these echoes weren't a natural occurrence. He painstakingly plotted the signals, and what he claimed to have found was a star chart that, when adjusted for a period of 13,000 years, seemed to point to the constellation Boötes. According to Lunan, the signals themselves weren't just random static. They were a coded message from an ancient extraterrestrial probe that had been silently watching our world for millennia. He even claimed to have translated a portion of the message, which described the object's origin in the Boötes system and its purpose as a silent observer. While the clues from Tesla and Lunan laid the groundwork, the legend of the Black Knight satellite truly exploded into public consciousness with what many consider its most compelling piece of evidence: a photograph. In December of 1998, during the Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-88 mission, astronauts were in the process of assembling the very first components of the International Space Station. Amidst this construction, cameras captured something anomalous. Drifting in the blackness of space, against the backdrop of Earth, was a bizarre object. It was distinct, dark, and had an unusual shape that looked almost mechanical, yet fragmented and organic. Conspiracy theorists immediately latched onto the image, claiming it was undeniable proof of the Black Knight's existence. But NASA's official explanation was that the object was a thermal blanket, which had been lost during a spacewalk by astronauts Jerry Ross and James Newman. They identified it as debris, officially catalogued as DEB 1998067C, and tracked its re-entry into the atmosphere a few weeks later. However, for believers, that explanation simply didn't add up. The distinctive shape and the sheer mystery seemed too perfectly aligned with the earlier accounts of an ancient, unknown satellite. And the story doesn't end there. Over the years, other fragmented pieces of evidence have surfaced. There have been whispers and unconfirmed reports from various corners of the space community. Some point to alleged statements from Russian cosmonauts in the early days of space exploration, hinting at unexplained objects in orbit. Others mention strange objects appearing on amateur radio feeds, and even on vintage satellite tracking systems. While often lacking concrete, verifiable proof, these anecdotes combine with the striking 1998 photograph to form the bedrock of the Black Knight legend. For many, it's not just a piece of space junk, it's the smoking gun. Proof that something ancient, something alien, has been silently watching us for millennia.
Now, of course, to be taken seriously, we have to consider the very logical and scientific explanation for all of this. While the idea of a 13,000-year-old alien satellite is fascinating, the truth, as presented by the mainstream scientific community, is far more grounded in reality. The most famous piece of evidence, that stunning 1998 NASA photograph, has a simple and well-documented explanation. During the STS-88 mission spacewalks, astronauts were working with a thermal cover for the International Space Station. A blanket, a cover, and a piece of debris were all lost during the process. The object in the photo perfectly matches the description of a thermal blanket, and its trajectory was tracked until it burned up in the atmosphere. And what about the earlier claims? Well, Tesla's supposed radio signals from space are widely believed to have been a misinterpretation of a much more common cosmic phenomenon. At the time, radio technology was in its infancy, and interference from natural sources like pulsars or even terrestrial weather was not fully understood. In fact, most scientists today agree that Tesla's signals were likely from powerful radio waves emitted by storms on Jupiter. As for Duncan Loonan's decoded message from a 13,000-year-old alien probe, that theory also has major holes. Skeptics point out that his work was never published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. The very concept of long-delayed echoes is something that still puzzles scientists, and there are many competing theories, most of which involve natural phenomena in Earth's ionosphere, not extraterrestrial signals. Loonan's interpretation is largely considered a classic case of pareidolia, where the human brain finds familiar patterns in random data, much like finding shapes in the clouds. So, while the Black Knight satellite makes for a great story, the evidence, when examined through a skeptical lens, can be explained by a combination of misidentified space junk, natural cosmic events, and a human desire to find patterns in the unknown. Despite the compelling scientific explanations and the debunking of the most famous photograph, a few threads of this mystery refuse to be neatly tied up. The skeptics have their answers, but do they fully explain everything? Let's go back to those original radio signals detected by Nikola Tesla. While the pulsar theory is widely accepted, many still find it hard to believe that a mind as brilliant as Tesla's would have mistaken a common planetary storm or a pulsar for something intelligently controlled. He spent years studying these signals and was certain they were artificial. Could he have been onto something that modern science has yet to fully grasp? And what about the sheer longevity of this legend? It's not just one sighting or one misidentified object. It's a collection of separate incidents from different decades and different parts of the world that all seem to point to the same impossible conclusion. Ultimately, the Black Knight satellite might just be a story born from our own mistakes and misinterpretations. But for those who believe, it's a whisper from an ancient past, a hint that we might not be alone and that we're being watched by something we can't fully comprehend. It's a tantalizing question mark hanging in the vast, silent void of space. So, what do you think? Is the Black Knight satellite a piece of space junk? A misinterpreted signal? Or is it exactly what its believers say it is? A silent, ancient observer, waiting to be discovered? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're ready to unlock more mysteries, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Mystery Channel Unlocked. Till next time.
I hope to see you once again in the next upload.